We've covered a lot of ground so far, but this is just the start of Data and AI Summit. Many more exciting innovations and perspectives to share over the next couple of days. Thank you again to all the presenters so far, and to all of you for tuning in. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our first guest keynote. As I talked about up front, the spirit of this conference is rooted in a shared mission to solve the world's toughest problems. We've invited Malala Yousafzai to this year's summit because she brings a unique and very personal perspective to some of the systemic issues that we face as a society. People like Malala are the ones who inspire us to consider the role that technology, data, and AI can play in solving the world's toughest challenges. Malala is a Pakistani activist for female education, and she's the youngest Nobel Prize laureate. Through her foundation, Malala Fund, her advocacy has grown into an international movement. Please join me in welcoming Malala to the Data and AI Summit.
Thank you so much, Ali, for that kind introduction, and thank you so much to Databricks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I have read that you have over 100,000 people who will be hearing this summit this year from around the world. So I'd like to say hello to all of you, and to be in such a diverse community, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum, marhaba, hola. I don't know. I think I'm forgetting all the hellos in all the languages, but I'm just so glad to be in the company of you all, and I am just so grateful that I have the opportunity that I'm able to share my story. And some of you might have heard it, and some of you may not have heard it. But basically, I come from the north of Pakistan, and I was born in this valley, which was known to be the Switzerland of the East. And Queen Elizabeth also visited it, and she has praised its beauty. And it was known as a place of tourism, but that changed when I was just 11 years old. And that was the time around 10 years ago that terrorism started. And it started in the form of these extremist people in our society who started imposing strict laws, their so-called Islamic laws, in which they basically were against the freedom of people. They wanted people to behave in their way and according to their code of conduct. They especially targeted women, including the fact that they were not allowing women to go to markets. And then it changed for me personally and completely when they announced a ban on girls' education. And I was just 11 years old when I realized that that my right to school was all of a sudden taken away from me. And I still remember waking up that morning in 2009, and I realized that I could not go to school anymore. And that day I cried. I was talking to my father what it meant for me when I would not be in school. And he was a passionate teacher. He was running that school for so many years. He had both girls and boys sitting in that school, learning and getting their education. And he also knew that this meant a future for so many girls. And we had already seen in our society that when girls are not in school, they are more vulnerable to early child marriages. Their parents, their brothers prohibit them from going outside of their houses. They often do not have a choice in their life decisions, and a lot of them have children when these girls themselves are children. So just imagining all of that in that moment, for me, it was a point where I realized that education was more than just learning and reading. It was about the emancipation of women. It was about the freedom of women. And I was worried about my identity. I was worried about who I was and what it meant to me if I were not in school and if I did not have access to education. Because many girls go nameless. Many girls just disappear from society. Many girls do not get the opportunity to follow their dreams because they do not have access to education. So school was a place of emancipation for me and many girls. And that's why I decided to start my campaign and start speaking out to local media channels, to national media channels and international media channels, And I initially was just telling my story, the story of what was happening in my valley, highlighting that more than 400 schools were destroyed, highlighting the fact that women's freedom was taken away, that women were not even allowed to go shopping, and that girls' education was completely banned. Uh, and I was not aware whether my story would be heard or not. I was just trying to do my bit to ensure that at least I raise my voice for truth and I raise my voice for what is right, because I did realize that a lot of people were silent, either because they were scared that the terrorists would target them, or because they were just they just didn't have the courage or didn't have the opportunity to be bold and to speak out what was actually happening, to speak the truth. So I knew that if nobody spoke out, nothing will change. So I have this strong belief since then that if you want to see change in your community, you have to speak out for it, because things will remain as they are for as long as we keep quiet about them. And since then, my father and I have been doing activism for girls' education. And a lot of you might have heard the rest of the story, that I was attacked, and because of my medical treatment, I was moved to the UK. And since then, I have had this incredible opportunity to campaign for girls' education globally, because it was not just girls in Swat Valley in that one specific year that could not go to school. There are 130 million girls around the world who do not have access to education. And education is not just about the emancipation and empowerment of individual girls and boys, but it's also about the transformation of society, making it a more uh, making it a healthier, greener, a more peaceful place for everybody, making it more inclusive, and ensuring that everybody from any background gets the opportunity to follow their dreams and to live their life according to their choice. So I look forward to talking more about all of this in the conversation. But what I would reinforce in my introductory remarks is that that you all are in such incredible positions. You have had the best quality education that one can ever imagine, whether it was your formal education or whether it was the informal education that you have received from your mentors, from your friends, from your colleagues. You have this incredible opportunity to uh, to make this world a better place through your ideas, through your creativity. So I will say that keep spreading this knowledge and pass it on to others, because when we multiply these amazing ideas and this knowledge that we have, it makes this world better, more inclusive for everybody. So education and knowledge are sources of empowerment. So do take advantage of these opportunities. I look forward to the Q&A with Ali now. Thank you.
Mala, thank you so much for joining us at Data and AI Summit. Your story is so inspiring to millions of people around the world. So to start, I'd love to just learn more about what inspires you. What are some of your childhood heroes? What are your favorite books, authors, or other leaders that you admire?
Wow, that's a lot to mention in that. For me, I really valued the people around me, my dad, my brothers and my two brothers, and my school friends. I learned so much from them. And I was hugely influenced by Indian TV dramas and Bollywood movies. So I have watched that for my whole life. And I am more of a fantasy person. So I used to imagine myself on the TV screen a lot. And I was a big fan of Cartoon Network. So I watched literally each and every cartoon, from Tom and Jerry to Courage the Cowardly Dog to Pink Panther. I don't think I have left any cartoon. And I think probably my favorite one was Powerpuff Girls and Courage, for sure. And other than that, I had watched quite a few movies back then in Pakistan. And I think one of that was the Titanic, which everybody has seen. uh, and I did not read that many books in Pakistan outside my school curriculum, because children are usually limited to their school textbooks. And, I, at age, I think 10 or 11, started picking up books outside my school curriculum. And one of the first books that I read was A Brief History of Time and The Alchemist. And so, yeah, I loved physics back then, and I was always curious about, just the world around us and how things work on such a, minute, microscopic level, to then how it works, in the universe that we are living in. Yeah, I enjoyed that, and I've always been a curious person, trying to know as much as I can.
The internet today hopefully is changing things for a lot of young kids in Pakistan and other places. They'll maybe hopefully have more access to books. Do you think that's a big change, and do you see hope around that? How technology can help them actually maybe read more and get access to things that they didn't have access to before?
Technology has brought in so many opportunities for us to create a world that is more inclusive. And I think we should look at the tools of technology and use it for the betterment of society. So I think it's up to us how we use it. The tools are there, the technology is there. And I think in exploiting and in using technology, we do need diverse voices. We do need more ideas, at the table. And I think when we have more voices at the table, we will get better ideas in how to make sure that technology is helping all of us, not just some of us. So, and even in this time of pandemic, especially, all of us switched to online learning. My last semester of university was through my laptop screen. That was all I saw. I was sitting in my bedroom, taking my classes through my laptop, taking my exams on my laptop. Everything was just on a screen. And so I think it has allowed us to imagine, education in a new way, because, we have always been very, very strict about the concept of education and think in more the traditional sense. But I think it's time that we take a step ahead and have a bit of faith in how we can use technology in providing access to education to people who are living in remote areas, or girls who might find it difficult to travel to school. Walk for them may not be safe. They might have other difficulties in reaching to a classroom. So how can we use the technology to ensure that they continue their education wherever they are?
That makes a lot of sense. Many people would say that you're living proof that anything is possible. A young girl living in the most challenging circumstances and what you had to go through, and then grow up to be a Nobel laureate, graduate from Oxford, and you inspired a whole global movement. You must have an unwavering willpower and optimism about you. Where did that come from, and what advice do you give to other people so that they can stay optimistic?
For me, it's really important to stay committed to the cause of girls' education. I have been one of those girls who could not go to school at age 11, and I know how crucial it was for me to be in school. It was not just about learning, reading, and writing. It was about my safety. It was about my protection. It was about my future and me being able to make choices on my own by myself in my future. Because when many girls are not educated, they are not able to make decisions for themselves. They're not able to make informed decisions for themselves. And they do not even know about their rights, their body rights, their constitutional rights, that they should not be getting married before age 18. All of these things, I think education is truly empowering. But also, I have met girls globally around the world. I have met girls in Nigeria, in Iraq, in Lebanon. I have met Syrian refugee girls, and I have met girls in the UK and in the US. And many of them come from very challenging backgrounds. They have family difficulties, they have financial difficulties, they have become refugees, they have become displaced from their homes, they have seen terrorism, they have seen extremism, all of those things. But despite that, these girls never give up. I remember one girl in a refugee camp in Iraq, and she was a Yazidi girl whose family had to flee their village because of ISIS. But also, at age 14, this girl was pushed by her family to get married And she was telling her story of how she decided to take off her high heels, and she escaped and ran away on her wedding day because she knew that her future should not be getting married at age 14, that she should be in school. Every girl knows that she should be in school at this age, and that she should be learning, she should be in a classroom. So these, when you hear these stories of these amazing, courageous young girls, it truly inspires you. I feel like, there's still a lot more to do, and it's for the future of these girls that we have to keep on fighting.
So it's the cause that kind of drove you and gave you sort of hope to be optimistic and continue the sort of struggle.
It's the cause, but it's also like it includes lives of people. And I know how many girls lost their dreams because they were not allowed to go to school. I remember my friend, when we were in grade 5, she stopped attending our school. Everybody was worried where she had gone. And then we were the same age, and at age 14 she called me on phone. And I was, really worried about her. I was like, what had happened? Why did you stop coming to school? And she told me that she was already married and she had a kid when she herself was a child. So, these are just unimaginable stories, but people go through it, and girls are still going through it till this day. There are 130 million girls who do not have access to education. Even the girls who do enroll into school are not able to complete their educations. They do not reach to their secondary education because, when they reach their puberty age, they face a lot more challenges. They face family pressure. There are not enough schools in their areas, or they are forced into early child marriages.
What's the best way to get people who think that the right thing for my girl that's 13 years old is to get married? How do we help them understand that you're not giving, you're this is not right? Your daughter could be so much more. She could, there's a whole world. What's the best way to get through to them?
So, this is the cause that Malala Fund has been fighting for, and our goal is to ensure that all girls can go to school. I wish there was just one solution to that, but unfortunately, there are many factors we have to fight against. And I think, the one which you mentioned is convincing people, is having this conversation, and which is addressing social norms. And Malala Fund has been investing in local education advocates who are doing campaigning on local community level, who are encouraging the local leaders, including religious leaders, to talk about the importance of education. And we have seen that in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and other areas as well. But then at the same time, it's also the availability and the supply side of this issue, which is like, are government providing enough schools? Are they providing quality schools? Are they addressing the local issues? Like in some areas, the issue is not as much the school, but are parents feeling safe, for their children in school? Some parents prefer to have female teachers in their schools, and they feel more confident to send their daughters to school that way. So are we providing, training to female teachers? Are we ensuring that there are enough female teachers? Because that way you could, address the issue, which is one of, like, our focus is in Afghanistan. We are working on training female teachers. So financing for education is important. There's a billions of dollars gap in it, and world leaders need to ensure that they invest the money that they need to sooner, as soon as they can. And especially now that this pandemic is happening, there is a risk of 20 million more girls dropping out of school, because in this period, like, it's already been a year, when a girl is sitting in the house, she's supposed to do all the house chores, she's supposed to be taking care of the family, and oftentimes if she's a burden on the family, she's married off, or she's told to become the financial supporter of the family, to earn for the family, because their father's income or their male family members' income has been affected by the pandemic. So many of these girls may never return to school. So, we are already talking about the gap that is developing, that from the fact that children have missed out on their education, that is months and months for many children in developing countries. So there is a risk that more girls may not be able to return to school. And we don't want to see the number increase. We want to see the number of girls out of school decrease. So this is the challenge ahead. But we need to do a lot, addressing social norms, financing for education, talking about the quality of education. Is it gender sensitive? Is it inclusive or not? Is it actually providing girls and children with the skills that they need to prepare for the future jobs? Like in many schools, they are still like not learning about technology, for instance. And like we already know that we are surrounded by technology, and we need to already equip ourselves with the knowledge that we are going to need for our future work, which, already a gap develops, but, you have to sort of work 10 times harder on this. But this has been like the focus of Malala Fund to work on these different factors.
Are there things that developed countries can do to help, bring technology to these developing countries and make sure that there is access to education and technology?
The answer is yes, because there is a lot that every country can do. Developed countries, the donor countries, can increase their support for education. They can give more support to the secondary education of girls. They can focus more on quality teachers training and on the curriculum and content of education. We need to be a bit more sensitive to what kind of education we are providing, so that it's not just increasing the number of teachers, but like, are these quality teachers? It's not just an increase in the number of schools, but are these quality schools? Are they actually providing the material of education that children need? So I think like financing for education has to be increased, and in that the US, the UK, the G7, G20 countries need to acknowledge the role that they have. And it's, so they make commitments to our Global Partnership for Education, GPE. They make commitments to Education Cannot Wait, which focuses on refugee children education. They can make direct bilateral partnerships as well with the developing countries. There are so many ways in which they can, make their commitments. But at the same time, I think, there are other ways like canceling debts or, special drawing rights. And there are so many other ways in which they can help and assist the developing countries, because, maybe that a developing country is in a position where the debt that they have to pay back is far more than their education spending in total. So there could be a lot of debt burden, financial burden, especially in this COVID time. But at the same time, I will say that in developing countries as well, we need to do a lot more work on how they spend the resources and the financial assistance that they receive, but also how they're using the resources within their own country towards education, towards health, towards the good causes where it should be spent. So we are working like nationally in Nigeria, in Pakistan, Brazil, and all these countries to push governments to invest more in education, to have 20% of their budgets dedicated to education, and increase their GDP spending as well on education. So there are ways in which every country can play their part.
I do want to talk about the industry we're in, Databricks, in tech, especially in data and AI. There's a significant talent shortage, and especially there's a big gender imbalance. What can we do as individuals, as governments, and also companies like Databricks to address this?
First of all, I would like to say thank you to all the women here, because they're already breaking the glass ceiling or the iron bars in front of them. And I think for a lot of little girls in school, they need role models and they need inspirations. And the textbooks that they are seeing so far, the TV shows that they're seeing so far, in the news that they are hearing so far, is quite limited. And oftentimes when we talk about technology and maths and engineering and just this, nerdiness, we would often think about men and boys, and I think that has to change. So, and I am hopeful and I am optimistic that the entertainment content that we are seeing right now, and even the language and the tone that we are using right now is already having a huge impact. We are more gender sensitive in the language that we use, and we are seeing more shows and more movies that are showing women in the main role, which is where they should have been already. But And I think for people who are already in key positions, I think they should not take their position of leadership for granted. They have this unique opportunity to make crucial decisions about making their organization an inclusive place for everybody. And it could be small steps like how you make an advertisement, or how you give a speech in your office, or how do you send off an email. I think all of these things can have a huge impact. And I think for that, a lot of us, all of us need that level of training in the diversity, inclusivity work, because we do have unconscious biases, and we might say things, we might do things that are sort of unintentional, and we do that. For me, like, I might be more biased sort of towards women. I would, prefer to have women staff, or like, for a good reason. So I think we also, like, sort of need to question ourselves and think about the society that we want to create, but also do not underestimate the role that we as individuals can play. And I always keep talking about the role that that we have in our everyday life. What are we doing when we are in an office? What are we doing when we are at home? How do we treat our siblings? How do we talk to our parents? How do we talk to our relatives and friends? Are we, like, promoting and pushing a habit or an idea? Are we encouraging it? Are we discouraging it? How are we contributing to the sort of the norms and the taboos that we are creating in society? So, like, I would just say, never underestimate the power that you actually have in your actions and in your words.
So in the beginning, I asked you, when you grew up, who were your role models? I think you are now a role model for many, many people. Well, over time, you've become incredibly important global figure and a leader for change. How do you think about that role and the impact that it has on others?
I don't know. I think for me, one of the most important thing is that that learn from everybody around you, and you do not just look for good qualities, also look at your own flaws and the flaws of others. And I think you can learn through that as well. I've had the opportunity to meet quite a few world leaders, and oftentimes you learn what not to say and what not to do from them. There's always something there to learn. And for me, like, I really appreciate the women who have made changes, who have made history, who have become the first presidents and prime ministers, including the first vice president in the US, and who have become the first CEO of a company, and there are many women who have done incredible job in history, who have been behind the technology that we have right now, who have played a crucial role in coding and in sciences, but their names are not known, or their names are unheard because they have not been appreciated. And we are looking back at history and seeing how they played a role, even in in reaching space and all of these things, but they were sort of left behind, or as if sort of the man had to take the mission forward. As like, we need to appreciate each and every person who has played a role in the developments that we have seen, in the progress that we have seen, and we need to appreciate each other, and we need to support each other. So I'm in awe of every person who is making this world a better place. I always get inspired by people who have incredible ideas.
Yeah, and everyone can do their part. It doesn't matter. I mean, for me, my role model was my mother. Anyone can do that. You can do it in small ways around you. Before I say goodbye, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to 10-year-old Malala if you were to go back in time, and if you knew what you know now?
I personally, I get asked this question many times, and I always say that I just don't want to give that 10-year-old Malala any advice. Like, she was fine. She was strong and committed. She was living in a very difficult time because Talibanization had started. Schools were being bombed by the Taliban. and she was concerned about her education, and there would be, shelling, like, bomb shellings and firings, but she would still go to her school. And she had this strong faith that change was possible, and that she was strong and she was brave, even though she was like small 10-year-old. But I think that belief for her was really important. So I would want her to continue to have that belief. And I even know now that, that with time we lose a bit of that optimism. Sometimes we, have these big dreams and we are like, maybe, okay, I need to sort of, be a bit more realistic. But even now, if I am a bit optimistic about something, I know that I might change when I'm like 30 or 40. But for now, if I do believe in it, like, let me believe in it. Let me believe that this can become a reality. It doesn't do any harm. It makes me stay committed to the mission. And for me, that goal and that mission is to see every girl in school receiving safe and quality education. It was the dream of that Malala who was 10 years old, and it's the dream of this 23-year-old Malala as well. And I hope that this continues to be her dream, and that we see this dream come true sooner.
I love that answer. Why should she change? I mean, she had amazing impact. Malala, thank you so much for taking time to join us at Data and AI Summit, and for all the amazing work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you for your time.